So reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. The chapter is entitled Struggling Alone. Of all his friends and admirers, Bhaktivedanta Swami gave his roommate, David Allen, the most personal attention and training. He felt he was giving David a special chance to become America's first genuine Vaishnava. Bhaktivedanta Swami would eventually return to India, and he wanted to take David to Vrindavan. He could show him temple worship and train him for future preaching in the West. I'm very, very glad to say, Bhaktivedanta Swami said one evening in his lecture, that our Mr. David says sometimes, Swamiji, I want to increase my spiritual life immediately. Bhaktivedanta Swami laughed as he imitated David's urgency. Take patience, I tell him. It will be done, of course. When you have got such desire, God will help you. He is within you. He is simply trying to see how sincere you are. Then he will give you all opportunities to increase your spiritual life. At first, David and the Swami lived together peacefully in the large hall, the Swami working concentratedly on his side of the partition, David ranging throughout ranging throughout the large open space. David, however, insisted on taking marijuana, LSD, and amphetamines, and the Swami had no choice but to tolerate. Several times he told David that drugs and hallucinations would not help his spiritual life, but David would look distracted. He was becoming estranged from the Swami. Bhaktivedanta Swami, however, had a plan to use the loft as a temple, to transform it into New York's first temple of Radha and Krishna, and he wanted David's cooperation. Although the neighborhood was one of the most miserable in the world, Bhaktivedanta Swami talked of bringing deities from Jaipur or Vrindavan and starting temple worship, even on the Bowery. He thought David might help. After all, they were roommates, so there could be no question of David's not cooperating, but he would have to give up his bad habits. Bhaktivedanta Swami was trying to help David, but David was too disturbed. He was headed for disaster, and so were Bhaktivedanta Swami's plans for the loft. Sometimes, even not under the influence of a drug, David would pace around the loft. Other times, he appeared to be deep in thought. One day, on a dose of LSD, he went completely crazy. As one of the Swami's visitors, Carl Jurgens, put it, he just flipped out, and the Swami had to deal with a crazy man. Things had been leading up to this. He was a crazy kid who always took too much, but the real madness happened suddenly. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 2, Text 9 to 11. So I'll go through the first two and then we'll chant together the third, 11th verse. Stena Sura Pamitra Truk Brahmaha Guru Talpaka Sri Raja Pitrigod Kanta Yechapati Takino Pare Savisham Api Agavatam Idameva Sunishkritam Nama Vyaharanam Vishnur Yatastad Vishayamati. Translation. The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu. Sorry, did we say the invocation? Oh, sorry. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Om Namo
Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So this is a translation to 9 and 10. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the best process for atonement for a thief of gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a Brahmin, or for one who indulges in sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders women, the king or his father, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection. Text 11. Now, Niskritai, Uditai, Brahma, Vadibis, Na Niskritai, Uditai, Brahma, Vadibis, Tata, Vishuddhyati, Agavan, Pratapitibi, Tata Vishuddhyatya Gavan Pratadibi
Tata Vishuddhyatya Gavan Pratadibi
Yata Hare
Hare
Nama
Nama
Padaya
Hare
Uddharitais
Hare
Yata Hare Nama Padaya Uddharitais
Hare Nama Padaya Hare
Tat Tat Uttama Shloka
Uttama
Gunopalam Bakam
Gunopalam
Tat Uttama Shloka Gunopalam Bakam
Uttama Shloka Gunopalam
Nanishkritai Uttitai Brahma Vadibis
Nishkitai Uditai Brahmavadiki
Tata Vishuddhyatya Gavan Pratadipi
Vishuddhyatya Gavan Pratadibi
Yata Hare Nama Padar Uttaritais
Hare Nama Padaya
Tat Uttama Shloka Gunopalam Pakam
Uttama Shloka Gunopalam
Nanishkritai Uttitai Brahma Vadibis
Nishkitai Uditai Brahmavadiki
Tata Vishuddhyatya Gavan Pratadipi
Tata Vishuddhyatya Gavan Pratadibi
Yata Hare Nama Padar Uttaritais
Yata Hare Nama Padaya
Taduttama Shloka Gunopalam Pakam
Uttama Shloka Gunopalam Namaskritam Uditam Brahmavadini Namaskritam Uditam Brahmavadini Tata Vishuddhyatya Gavanvatadivi Yata Hare Nama Pade Udaritai Yata Hare Nama Pade Udaritai Uttama Shloka Gunopalam Nishkitai Uditai Brahmavadini Nishkitai Uditai Brahmavadini Tata Vishuddhyatya Gavanvatadivi Tata Vishuddhyatya Gavanvatadivi Tata Hare Nama Padaya Udaritai Tata Hare Nama Padaya Udaritai
Uttama Shloka Gunopalam Pakam Nishkritai Uttitai Brahma Vadibis
Hare Rama Hare Hare
Nishkritai Uttitai Brahma Vadibis
Tata Vishuddhyatya Gavan Pratadivi Yata Hare Nama Padaya Taduttama Shloka Gunopalam
Na
No,
Not
no,
Nishkritai
Nishkitai
by the process of atonement
by the process of atonement
Uttitai
Uditai
prescribed
prescribed
Brahmavadibi
Brahmavadivi
by learned scholars such as Mani
scholars such as Manu
Tata
Tata
to that extent
to that extent
Vishuddhyati
Vishuddhyati
becomes purified
becomes purified
Agavan
Bhagavan
a sinful man
sinful man
Vrata Adibi
Pratadivi
by observing the vows and regulative principles
by observing the vows and regular principles
Yata
Yata
as
as
Hare
Hare
of Lord Hari
Uddhavi
Nama Padai
Namapadai
by the syllables of the holy name
by the syllables of the holy name
Uddharitai
Uddharitai
chanted
chanted
Tat
Tat
that
that
Uttama Shloka
Uttama Shloka
of the Supreme Personality of Godhead
of the Supreme Personality of Godhead
guna
guna
of the transcendental qualities,
of the transcendental qualities,
upalambakam,
Upalambakam,
reminding one.
reminding one.
Translation of Prabhupada Ki Jai. By following the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or undergoing atonement, sinful men do not become as purified as by chanting once the holy name of Lord Hari. Although ritualistic atonement may free one from sinful reactions, it does not awaken devotional service, unlike the chanting of the Lord's holy names, which reminds one of the Lord's fame, qualities, attributes, pastimes, and paraphernalia. Kapot. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that the chanting of the holy name of the Lord has a special significance that distinguishes it from the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies for atonement for severe, more severe, or most severe sinful actions. There are 20 types of religious scriptures called Dharma Sastras, beginning with the Manu Samhita and Parashara Samhita, but herein it is stressed that although one may become free from the reactions of the most sinful activities by following the religious principles of these scriptures, this cannot promote a sinful man to the stage of loving service to the Lord. On the other hand, chanting the holy name of the Lord, even once, not only frees one immediately from the reactions of the greatest sins, but also raises one to the platform of rendering loving service to the Supreme Personality Godhead, who is described as Uttama Shloka, because he is famous for his glorious activities. Thus, one serves the Lord by remembering his form, his attributes, and pastimes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that this is all possible simply by chanting the Lord's holy name, because of the Lord's omnipotence. What cannot be achieved through the performance of Vedic rituals can be easily achieved through the chanting of the Lord's holy name. To chant the holy name and dance in ecstasy is so easy and sublime that one can achieve all the benefits of spiritual life simply by following this process. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declares, Param Vajayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, all glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtan. The Sankirtan movement we have started offers the best process for becoming purified of all sinful reactions and coming immediately to the platform of spiritual life. Kam karuti vachanam pankam lagaite yadvikatalam bante shikarun tinitarinam. Vanchakalpa chubhischa kripa sindhu vyeva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to practice the sharing of Krishna consciousness in this opportunity. By the blessings of the devotees, I'll be able to give something that will be meaningful to them and hopefully hit the heart in some way. So, mercy, Prabhupada. So, we've been listening to how sinful Ajamil was, and how he became qualified to be approached by the Yamadutas, and he was so degraded that he took to any means to maintain his family, and taking, goes without saying, he was taking more than his quota and others' property, for example. But this is the situation of the whole world just now, which is full of such arjamils. And the only reason why we don't count amongst them is because of the holy name of the Lord, the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, he came to share it. So this Krishna consciousness is the only means for upliftment, the only hope for anyone in this material world who's suffering due to their own sinful acts. And this, just as we have the process of Krishna consciousness, there's the process of degradation, which is illustrated here with starting with bad association. For Ajamila was the prostitute. And but nowadays, people the breaking of the 4 regulative principles of illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, meat eating is promoted by a government who's meant to protect people from such activities, so that they'll be able to fulfill the purpose of the human form of life. But instead, people are kept in ignorance in this way. And any regard for spiritual direction is very much minimized in comparison. So from that, people become infected by the low-grade qualities of passion and ignorance. And being so immersed, their only destination is hell. So, or just a continued cycle with a repeated birth and death. The cycle going from hell to the heavenly planets back down again. And so on, just like a rodent in a Ferris wheel. So it seems pretty pointless. So therefore, Prabhupada came and to give people the opportunity of good association. He gained some interested followers who became persons of ideal character who were able to attract so many people to the path of Krishna consciousness. And that's why temples, where he set up the temples, there'd be kind of embassies for the spiritual world. And in here, there'd be a culture of respect for spiritual injunctions in the form of guru, sadhu, and sastra. In this way, people become purified and rise to the mode of goodness, and ultimately for Shuddha-sattva, and to regain be so purified that they're just left with their original spiritual identity and go back home, back to Godhead, which is the goal. So the examples of those of ideal character was, for example, Haridas Thakur. He came across a prostitute also, and she was probably, if not more alluring than the Sudrani, because being Maya Devi herself. But still, because Haridas Thakur was so attached to the holy names and relishing that transcendental relationship, then he wasn't victimized. He was protected by the holy name. And instead of becoming degraded, the prostitute herself became uplifted and converted to the activities of goodness, transcendental goodness. She ended up worshipping Tulsi, Devi, and became very famous as a pure devotee. And also there's Lord Nityananda. He was so, the associates of Lord Chaitanya, they would become so excited by just somebody once saying the holy name, became ecstatic because they knew the potency. And this is their Sankirtan, to just get everyone to chant. And Lord Nityananda went as far as to target the most simple persons of that time, which were Jagai and Madai, and even at the risk of physical harm, he still wanted them to just chant the holy name of the Lord. And as they did so, they became purified also. So these pastimes are there to encourage us that whatever our background, then we have the mercy of the Lord is there. And it's not a case of really having a choice, but to take up this path, because the laws of nature are there. We see what happened. The Sastra here is very mostly given us the opportunity to learn by hearing that we're not independent in this world. The laws of nature are there, and they'll act no matter who we are. Just like fire burns, whether you're a child or an adult. That shouldn't. So no one's exempt, unless one is taken to this process of devotional service. So in order to be progressive and maintain our Krishna consciousness, so many activities are there. Chanting the holy name. He said that deity worship is also necessary to help us come to the platform of goodness and kindness and recognition, and also accepting God as a person. So either side of the altar, on the altar or in the deity's temple room, we can engage in this deity worship, and this helps us to come to that higher platform. And in this way we're purified and able to teach others. So the purpose is to save ourselves and come to the point where we're living our life for the welfare of others. So for this reason, we remain in association with devotees, which can help bring us from strength to strength, so that we can be qualified to be able to infect others with the mode of goodness and help them come to the path of devotional service. Because Prabhupada says everyone has to take this up. Everybody has to take it up. And in Nectar instruction, it says that everyone should be interested in this process of devotional service. So how does that happen? And it doesn't happen by just us dressing up in a devotional clothes, tilak and so on, and saying something, and they'll just come in the door. They have to be attracted by our own qualities of goodness. And each of us have unique abilities to be able to engage in this Sankirtan movement of engaging as many people as possible. We have harinams and festivals and preaching, and in this way they can hear the philosophy. But for them to really take it up themselves takes that purification to take place, have an effect on them. So this means regular association, and also encouraging them by showing them how Krishna consciousness can enhance their lives. For this, we don't have to be a great philosopher or a big doer of any kind. Like a devotee was saying, all it boils down to is just being a nice person. And in this way, people become attracted. Because people come, but they only go away back to their friends or family because they have they have an intimate connection. So when devotees can establish when devotees can establish an intimate connection with those they meet, then they can be hooked, if you like. Because all their needs need to be fulfilled by becoming a devotee. So Krishna consciousness has to be presented in such a way that their intellectual needs are fulfilled, their emotional needs are fulfilled, how they can maintain themselves in such a way, live a simple way of life that they're not too encumbered by working so hard to maintain a living, and showing them the higher taste of how one can be fully satisfied from within, rather than depending on temporary measures to maintain some form of happiness. And in this way they can be inspired and uplifted and encouraged. And have a glimpse of the what's like in the spiritual world, and desire to go there themselves. So in this way, being aware of how much we need to improve, then in this way this can be a cue to always remember Krishna and never forget him, praying from the core of our hearts to become purified, and because only the Lord can do that. He's the purifying agent. And in this way, just by doing that, we are eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. The instruction is to always remember Krishna, never forget him, and always be thinking of ways of how to please him. So this is a full engagement for the mind. when we take to that, then don't run the risk of falling down, as Ajamil here has done. And as in the same pastime, how remembering the Lord can save us from all sorts of calamities, past, present, and future. So I'll stop there if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you, Prakash. You said about when new people come, we can make an intimate connection with them.
Mm.
What becomes to not give ourselves too much. People sometimes just get that balance between like just forming that connection without yourself being stable enough that it's sort of quite messy. I mean, you get personally involved.
Well, we care about them, but don't take care of them. I think that's really the question. It's, we can share what we have to give and take a personal interest, but not with that we're become emotionally involved. We're seeing them as a soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and trying to find ways of injecting Krishna consciousness in a way that's palatable for them, that's suitable for that'll take them to the next step. And you can only know that by befriending them in some way. Or they may have a natural attraction. There's some people that we may not be able to, there's, like on Sankirtan, we're on the street and trying to stop people, and somebody will walk past and be stopped by another devotee, or they'll walk past that other devotee but stop for us, so because we each have something that attracts somebody. So not to try too hard for someone you don't feel you're not really making that connection with. If they have questions, you can answer and so on. And then, as you see, like we can keep in touch with them. If you feel that there is a connection, then they feel like they like you and so on. Then they're willing to maybe be more open with you or accept what you've got to give. So therefore, it's our duty to be able to take that opportunity to share. So it may mean that keep in touch with them, emails, or have you read the book yet? Have you any questions, and so on. And they may write back, or they may not write back. So we don't need to give them if we don't have a reply, then maybe in a few months' time or something. Whereas if they do reply, then depending on their enthusiasm, it could be every week or something. But not that we slack ourselves in our own practices. We've got to save ourselves. Does that make any sense? Is there anything else that you were thinking of that was in that moment? Do you have a kind of answer to your own question?
Well, just in relation, you said people, I think you said people leave the relationship with their family members. So it sort of seems, that do we need to compete with that intimacy that people naturally have with their family members? Because obviously, if people feel more at home here, then that's going to make them stay more. But then it's somewhat difficult to come with so much baggage and conditioning.
Well, this doesn't mean that they'll come straight away. It'll take time. But for some, maybe that we're going to sit outside. For others who are willing and want to take it up, I see it as the most important thing in their life. being part of a spiritual family, then we can encourage them. You see the greater family, how we're all connected spiritually, how Krishna's the Supreme Father, and help them, engage them in such a way that they can have a taste of Krishna's presence in their life in some way, shape or form, either through kirtan, prasadam, at least initially, and then discussing Prabhupada's books with them to gain a deeper connection that way. And that will really stay. There's one devotee saying on these books are the basis, and he's talking about one devotee became disillusioned and left, and he got back in touch with him, and he just began discussing Prabhupada's books with him, and he said, the devotee said, well, I've never encountered this kind of aspect of Krishna consciousness before. And he's so enlivened by it. I don't know if he came back or not, but it's found it very enlivening. So any connection with Krishna has an uplifting effect. So especially in association devotees, then all the needs are met. And when Krishna's in the center, we have to be careful not to put ourselves in the center, like that we get, some people become interested and the ego inflates a little bit, and so we put ourselves as a great preacher rather than trying to give them Krishna. Just being the humble servant, just the messenger. And any other comments or?
Thank you for that, Mother. The question, if you could.
How is it like chanting the Lord's names reminds or brings about the Lord's fame, qualities, attributes, pastimes, and paraphernalia?
If I continue chanting the holy name, we become purified, because in our conditioned state, we can't understand very much. Krishna could be right next to us, but we can't see him. So, and then you hear of the associates of the Lord, like Rupa Goswami, seeing the Lord's pastimes in his heart. So how to come to that stage? So one has to be attracted by the name, and it will reveal these things in due course of time. It's not something that we can manifest by our own endeavor. Our own endeavor comes by chanting the holy name regularly, as much as possible, and by that purification, slowly the Lord's, what's it, Nama Guna Rupa Namnam, Guna Rupa Namnam. Then the name of the Lord, and then the form of the Lord becomes manifest. Then the Lord's qualities, and then eventually his pastimes. But it comes by a process of purification. Guru said, if you keep chanting and you're really attracted to the holy name, it's just a matter of time when all these big things become manifest. But if we don't have any attraction, then it won't.
Just remember, I have an analogy that the holy name is like when computers get compressed. It's like smaller, but then you have to expand it or whatever to tell us that it's got all this information inside of it. which is I got like that now.
The Shastakam says, within your holy name, it has all the potencies and energies and so on. All of it's there, but because we're so conditioned, we can't perceive that. But by prolonged practice and really absorbing, if we really want to see these things and really put our heart into our chanting, we really have to really desire these things to happen. If we want it to happen, it has to be a really strong desire for the Lord to please appear. And then, like said in the Prabhupada Leela and Rita, Prabhupada was saying, take patience, take patience. It will be done, of course. When you have got such a desire, God will help you. And then he says, he's within you. He is simply trying to see how sincere you are. The Krishna is just testing us to see how if we'll value those value the Lord's form, qualities, attributes, pastimes becoming manifest before us, or will we take it cheaply? So he has to be sure that we won't take it cheaply before he does reveal these things. So to be really sincere and really desire to have that purification to make us that purified of that which distances ourselves from that manifestation taking place. Because we could go on chanting for lifetimes and lifetimes and not really get anywhere because it's not coming from the heart. The example of that is washerman. Krishna came across the Kamsa's washerman. Krishna met Krishna and met him and demanded, his as the cloth of the king. So there's the example of like the lady who's selling fruit. Krishna had only a few grains, but she gave him the fruit, and her baskets became jewels. But this washerman, he said, "Who are you to ask for the king's clothes?" And Krishna cut his head off just with his finger. And it said how this person actually was practicing devotional service for many, many lifetimes. But because he didn't see Krishna as for who he was, then when Krishna came before him, he couldn't, because he didn't have that appreciation. When Krishna did come before him, he didn't give him the due respect, or to speak of anything else, of love or things like this. So we have to make sure that we're not in the washerman's category, but the devotees who just gave their everything to Krishna to follow in their footsteps. That's why the gopis are the ultimate example. Just to give, nothing's too much to give to Krishna. Like the example of Narada Muni asking the devoted Krishna telling him that he's got a headache. The only thing that'll cure it is the dust of my devotees. So he went to so many devotees who said, "Well, I'll go to hell if I do that." But then coming to devotees, they were rushing to collect it, off each other, and here you are, sort of thing. And what you might go to hell for that, but that doesn't matter. Krishna has it, and only Krishna's happiness is what matters. So to come to that point where, if our distress is Krishna's happiness, then so be it. The problem is that the intellect and so on can get in the way. So too much calculation. Not that we should be blind, but just put ourselves, be totally dependent on Krishna. And in this way, we're kind of boarding the Jaladuta that I've been speaking about. To be completely dependent on Krishna, have a goal in mind, and just completely depend on Krishna, and then we're naturally praying like anything, because we don't feel qualified, we don't feel we've got the means or resources, but this is the instruction, and if we accept it, then we're naturally Krishna conscious. Is that okay? So if I've bored you for an hour, but thank you for being present and allowing me the opportunity. So Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON Guru Vrinda ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, Nitai Gaur Premalandi.